All right, KShawn wasn't the only one that underperformed from a running standpoint. We told you that LSU had a couple of participants over the weekend, including Jeray Jenkins for the Tigers, who his 40 time was not the fastest as well as he clocked 4.6, jumped 29.5. I mean, that's rare for LSU at that position, and we thought so highly of it to have that type of testing numbers. I mean, we've seen freakish numbers come out of that position from testing as LSU talking about the history of that. It was an enormous weekend for recruiting, and by now you know that you got to be getting your recruiting information from our friends over at On3. Shay was here in recruiting season hosting a podcast, and one of our favorites, Billy Embody, is over there covering it after a big junior day that LSU was really flexing. In fact, they picked up a couple of commitments, and we'll talk all about it here with Billy as he joins us on this Monday morning. Bill, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing good. All right, let's start with the commitments as it got going even before the weekend started, and Collage Cobbs out of Destrehan committed to LSU and that defensive side of the ball. What LSU pick up there?
Yeah, somebody with versatility. I mean, when Collage burst onto the scene, he was more of an edge guy coming off the edge, rushing the passer. But now he's shown a little bit of everything. And it looks like with his frame, he's going to be a more traditional linebacker who can kind of come off the ball, off that edge position. I'm not comparing his talent to Harold Perkins. He's one of the best athletes to really come through the linebacker position in recent recruiting history. But Collage has that versatility, and that's the type of way he can be used by LSU, which makes him intriguing and an interesting evaluation, too. With his frame, he's going to have to pack on weight to play linebacker, but he was very, very productive, playing for Destrehan and plays a very solid level of competition, of course. And, he's been a household name for years, and LSU did a great job here. I got to commend them because he was going to visit Michigan. He was going to go visit Texas. He's been to a few different places already, and it was starting to shape up like maybe it would be a battle. Like everybody felt good about him going to LSU and LSU being the leader, but nothing is, a given in recruiting. I mean, we kind of saw that with Juwan Johnson last month, but, with Collage, he decided to go ahead and jump on board. He said there's no better time for me to do it and start recruiting for my class.
And then over the weekend during Junior Day, Ahmad Brooks, Ahmad Bro, who was once committed to Duke, decommits and pledges to House and the Tigers. What did LSU pick up with this in-state pledge?
Yeah, this is a good one. I really like Ahmad Bro. He's got some frame potential to move kind of inside on passing downs and be kind of a threat in that regard. But he's out of Ruston, so again, competition level is there. He's got that size at about 6'4", 230. He's maybe not necessarily your pure off the edge kind of sprint after the quarterback. Just go jack linebacker. He's more of a defensive end who could play that Ollie Gay, that Savion Jones type spot from what we've gathered. And, again, somebody that, really was trending up, and they brought him in for a visit and of course had evaluated him throughout the fall. He had just committed to Duke right at the end of January. So, good evaluation by Duke to jump on him early and get him on board. But LSU turned up the heat. They offered, and he quickly decommitted and, wanted to stay home. I mean, that was the big thing he told us was, it was a huge offer in the sense of he sees what the program is doing, but staying home and being able to play for LSU was a huge, huge deal for him. And Ahmad Bro has a great motor. That's what stands out to him on tape. He plays with really strong pad level and made a lot of disruptive plays playing across that line of scrimmage for Ruston in their playoff run. So he's very active. I think this is a really strong pickup and an example of when it's a really good idea to trust your evaluation on a Louisiana kid, because once you offer, you can't take that back in state, especially. So for them to trust that, see him in person, green light it, and get him on board, it was a big success in that sense over the weekend.
All right, where do we start here with this junior day? Because everybody was here, right? I mean, Bryce Underwood, who is a quarterback who's at top of people's list, some of the top offensive linemen in the country stopped by. I mean, there's so many names. Where would you begin to recap the last couple of days in Baton Rouge?
I would start with Bryce Underwood. And we say junior day. Well, he's a sophomore, but he's the number one quarterback in the class of 2025. And I saw him earlier this year at Battle Miami. He's got a really, really strong arm, really good arm talent. And he's going to be somebody that when we come out with our rankings is going to be right up there near the top. And so we're going to kind of fall in line with the On3 industry ranking in that sense. He's so highly thought of. Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State. He's going to visit Clemson, Florida State, Texas A&M. He's got a long way to go in his recruitment, but his dad told me as I was flying back from the Under Armour camp in Orlando that it was a visit that really exceeded their expectations in a way. They had high hopes going in. This is a visit that Bryce wanted to make since he was in 7th grade. And so they made it a priority to, get it on the books and, lead off this recruiting period with an LSU visit. They're going to check out some other schools for spring practice and things like that. But what they did get to do was sit in on meetings with Joe Sloan and the other quarterbacks, get to spend a lot of time on Friday, especially with the coaching staff kind of before the craziness of the junior day began on Saturday. And they just really had a great time. I mean, and his dad, who's a coach as well, raved about Joe Sloan and the job he's doing recruiting him. So it's early, but I got to start there because of how highly touted and really impressive of a prospect Bryce Underwood is. And so now LSU has thrust themselves kind of into the mix. It's early, but it wouldn't shock me if they got back for another visit at some point and take in a game before they jump into decision-making time, I would say, next year. I don't know when exactly they want to make a decision, but quarterbacks commit earlier and earlier each year, it seems like. And if they do that, then, getting back on campus for a game would be a big priority, I would think.
They also hosted last week the nation's #1 offensive lineman in Casey Poe out of Texas. What'd you hear about that visit?
Yeah, Casey really liked it. And he's somebody that really values the structure and alignment that Brian Kelly's trying to put together. That's the big thing with him, and he really had a great time. Him and his family were in town for it, and I think this visit really set up LSU to be in the mix for him. He's got some other programs that are right in it, but he absolutely plans on being back for another visit, which is also a good sign of genuine interest. Is they can. I talked with one of LSU's new offers last week, and he has 17 visits in March and April combined. Now, that's all well and good, but you got to come back. And for Casey Poe to say, I am coming back, I'm going to be back. I don't know when yet, but I will be, and I have no reason to doubt him on that. That's big. He's going to visit Clemson, Georgia Tech, Auburn this weekend, Oklahoma, LSU, Bama, TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor. The list kind of goes on of schools that are really, really pushing for him. And, seeing pictures come out of him on campus, he's bigger than I thought. So he's somebody we love from an athleticism standpoint. He's got a lot of things going for him in that regard, as well as measurables. So he's the #1 interior offensive lineman in the country. And Brad Davis did a really good job getting his top guys on campus this weekend. And once again, he's starting to get some momentum. So we'll see kind of what happens. They've got Kyrie Lee already committed, who was back on campus out of John Ehret. He's kind of an intriguing interior guy, but he's also swinging for some pretty big names. I'll mention as well, Caleb Holmes out of Creekside High School in Georgia was on campus for a visit, and just some things I picked up when I was down in Orlando is that LSU is a major player for him. There's a lot of people that have their eye on the Tigers in that one. So once again, he got on campus. His first visit right after the dead period was to LSU, and Brad Davis signed DJ Chester and Paul Mabenga out of Georgia last year. So maybe he's starting to pick up a little bit of steam, recruiting some of the top guys out of Georgia. So really, really big weekend for Brad Davis. He also had Blake Frazier, one of the best offensive linemen in the country, on campus for the weekend. So when it comes to recruiting and getting your guys on campus, I think Brad Davis did a really, really strong job this weekend.
Yeah, another name to watch, defensive line, Terence Hibbler is the name that's popping here amongst SEC schools that are standing out. It looks like LSU made a good impression this past weekend.
Yeah, and Jamar Cain had a really good weekend. He had a nice group that came on campus. He had 2 top 100 guys in Justin Green and Cameron Beavers. One's a defensive end, maybe a defensive tackle. One's a pure defensive tackle in Cameron Beavers, which we know LSU needs this cycle. And then he had Terence Hibbler, who's picking up recruiting steam. Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and others are after him. And he really enjoyed himself. He really liked his visit. He's got Florida, I think, this weekend coming up, and he'll take a couple other visits this spring. But, he's somebody LSU's put themselves in a good position for. They also had Caleb Moore, who's a really quiet individual, but really enjoyed his time at LSU, another guy out of the state of Mississippi who can grow into a defensive tackle. So they needed to have a strong group on the defensive line come into town, and they pick up a commitment in Ahmad Bro. They get somebody who could play a little jack linebacker and Collage Cobbs from time to time. And, they also had a ton of defensive tackles on campus. So a really strong weekend in the trenches for LSU.
Mason Lunsford was a tackle out of Maryland that was entered the transfer portal that was on an official this weekend in Baton Rouge. Any feedback from his trip down south?
Yeah, he and I have talked here and there coming off the visit. He really enjoyed himself. He's still planning to go to Arkansas from what I gathered this weekend. So he's going through his process, as do a lot of these transfers as far as, taking their visits. A lot of them either just didn't get the right feel the first time around when it came to recruiting. So they do want to take all those visits, and they're kind of different in that regard. But LSU did a really nice job on his visit as well. I mean, Brad Davis, it was all hands on deck for him this weekend to have, a grad transfer as well as, multiple high-end prospects from the high school ranks on campus. So LSU's in position for Mason Lunsford, and they're going to have to battle the Razorbacks. I know that was a team that when he added that offer right away, a lot of people were kind of watching that one and kind of seeing, if that might be the pick for him.
How about the state's top prospects? You mentioned Jawan Johnson a couple of minutes ago, and he's headed to Oregon, I believe, right? And then
Colorado.
Colorado, I'm sorry. But what about like Tylan Singleton, Trades Green, Dominic McKinley? Were those guys present this weekend? And what's the relationship like with LSU and the top guys?
Yeah, Tylan Singleton was at TCU, and that's a school that's recruited him really well. They've recruited North Louisiana really well through the years, both with Gary Patterson and now Sonny Dykes. So they're doing a good job getting in there with him. I think LSU is still a team that's in strong position. I think Texas A&M is going to make a run on him. They're really high on him. I know they're putting in a lot of work there, and as is LSU and multiple other schools. But he did go to TCU this weekend. He's supposed to come to LSU April 1st. One thing I'll say about this weekend in general is there were some prospects they had to get on campus to keep some momentum with and keep pushing and get them on campus for their first visits. And then there are others that they want to make sure they're coming back for spring practice. And LSU obviously didn't start spring practice this weekend. So the goal is to get them back for practices. And if that means, an in-state kid like a Tylan Singleton, obviously they're, I think, not necessarily okay with, but they're okay with him going somewhere else this first weekend. If that means he's coming back and seeing practice, seeing them prepare and work under the staff, that's important. I don't think Trades Green was there this weekend. He's very, very quiet. Not sure where he was exactly. He might be playing basketball. He might be doing 7-on-7. He's got a pretty busy schedule. And then Dominic McKinley was at Alabama. He did check out LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas right before the dead period started last month. So it's not too surprising that he went and checked out one of his other new offers. I think he'll make some other visits very, very early for him. I think he's going to be back on campus this weekend at LSU, but we'll have to see on that. But he is somebody that is brand new to all this attention. I mean, he has blown up in a big way. So I expect him to take some visits and pop back up to campus for a spring practice at some point.
Real quick before I want to talk to you about basketball before I get you out of here, but a couple of underclassmen as well. Keelan Moses on campus for a short amount of time. What was the impact that the underclassmen made? I know we talked a little bit about Underwood.
Yeah, Keelan Moses, again, a good example of LSU getting a lot of momentum early, just like they did with Bryce Underwood. But this is a guy right in your backyard, and his recruitment sounds like it's going to go very different than his brothers, just from how they handle it and all those things. He just wanted to get back to LSU, and he stopped by for a quick minute before he had to go to 7-on-7. And he just said it's just great to get around the coaching staff and experience everything they have to offer. I mean, I think he showed up, he talked with the coaches for a couple hours, it sounds like, and then he had to go to 7-on-7. So that's a great sign when obviously he's nearby. It's not too difficult for him to swing through, but for him to do that instead of sleeping in or just kind of hanging out before 7-on-7, he wanted to get by and see LSU. I think he's going to take some other visits this spring, but he's one that has been consistently visiting LSU all the time. Multiple games, stops by for practice here and there when he's available. I think he's somebody that if you're circling, top 20, 25 guys for LSU to get, he's one of them, and they're in very good position to get him as well.
Billy, any prospects for basketball? Anything? I mean, the offseason will be here pretty quick for LSU. Where does recruiting trend for the program?
Yeah, I think the transfer portal is going to be big, and that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, they've got to address this roster and upgrade it in a big way to have a chance of being successful. Yeah. That's the reality of it. They've got to upgrade it immediately, and that's going to be the big thing that they're going to be pushing for. I do know that Ole Miss point guard signing Josh Hubbard, the 4-star point guard, did get out of his national letter of intent. I think he's somebody that you can see LSU kick the tires on and kind of get involved there. Obviously, Ronnie Hamilton, assistant at LSU, was at Ole Miss and was a part of recruiting him. So we'll see if Josh Hubbard gives LSU a look. He could be somebody that ends up staying in state anyway. That was something I heard in his recruitment, that he was going to be tough to pull out of Mississippi anyway. And but now LSU can kind of at least talk to him and see where his head's at and say, look, we need you. We need somebody like you to come in. He's very, very highly thought of. And, it wouldn't shock me if LSU kicked the tires there. But for the most part, I think we're going to see them go portal heavy in a big way.
What was your reaction to see KShawn's numbers at the Combine?
Disappointing. I mean, just knowing, the type of prospect he was coming out of high school and just, freaky and reminded me of Jamar Chase in many ways on, just his athleticism and ability to make points and coming out of high school. And that obviously hurt him. Clearly I think things aren't on the right track with him from a preparation standpoint. And, maybe he needs to be shut down and given a chance to recover some more or something. But that was really, really disappointing. I mean, I don't even know if the 40 was as disappointing as the vertical jump. I mean, that was just shocking to me. So I hope he figures it out and finds a way to get drafted at least and get some money and then kind of address his overall preparation and everything. That was really tough to see.
I know you have to go. Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
The permanent 3 that Dellinger reported on going into the weekend. LSU was reported Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. Any surprise there from you?
I wouldn't even know what the other options would have necessarily been. I mean, we could obviously talk about, maybe in Arkansas with the trophy involved or, that would have been nice to kind of swap that, I think, with Ole Miss. But I kind of like, the Ole Miss being in there. Texas A&M is one that it's just gotten so nasty. I think you've got to have it in there. Yeah. And then Alabama, that makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. So I don't have a problem with it. I think those are a great permanent three. But Arkansas would probably be the one that I would have said, okay, maybe swap that one for Ole Miss.
Billy, have a great day. Thank you for the time this weekend, this Monday after a busy recruiting weekend.
Anytime. Thanks a lot, Jordy. I appreciate it.
You got it. There he is. Check out Billy Embody online at on3.com, covering recruiting as the Carpool Queen just walked in. We'll reset and be right back for more of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.